Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day everyone. I am Salmiya Robles Bara-acal of BSN English 3B. Today, I will continue the discussion in Miss Hamida Muhammad's report, which is the Singaporean literature. The literature of Singapore comprises a collection of literary works by Singaporeans in any of the country's four main language, which is English, Chinese or Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. So their works are it's either written in any of their four official languages. In Singapore, poetry is the predominant mode of expression. So, kaya mostly, the published works of Singapore writing in English have been in poetry form. So, mostly, kung napapansin nyo, karamihan sa mga literary works nila ay poetry. And there are actually a lot of Singaporean writers, but I will only be mentioning a few. First in the list is Goh Pong Seng. He is a Singaporean dramatist, novelist, doctor, and a poet. The Immolation and If We Dream Too Long are his famous works. Next is Koh Pao Kun. He was a playwright, theater director, and arts activist in Singapore who wrote and directed both Mandarin and English plays. He founded 3 arts and drama centers in Singapore, conducted and organized a number of drama seminars and workshops, and mentored Singaporean and foreign directors and artists. Koo is acknowledged by both locals and foreigners as the pioneer of Singapore theater and was awarded the Cultural Medallion in 1990 for his contributions to Singapore theater. His plays are characterized for their dramatic and social commentary, use of simple metaphors, and multiculturalism themes that have been staged locally and internationally. The Coffin is Too Big for the Hole, Images at the Margins, a collective of Kupal Kun plays, and 2 plays by Kupal Kun are some of his works. Next is Goh Sin Tab, who was a well-known pioneer of Singaporean literature. He was a prolific writer of numerous book titles, which includes bestsellers like The Nan Mi Su Girls of Emerald Hill, The Ghost Lover of Emerald Hill, and The Ghost of Singapore. He also wrote a collection of short stories in Malay. Next is Koh Bak Song. He is a writer, editor, and consultant in branding, communications, strategy, and corporate social responsibility in Singapore. He has authored and edited more than 30 books. Koh is the author of 3 poetry collections, A Brief History of Toa Payoh and Other Poems in 1992, The Worth of Wonder in 2001, and The Ocean of Ambition in 2003. His poetry has been featured in anthologies such as the following: Journey's Words, Home and Nation, Words for the 25th, Readings by Singapore Writers, No Other City, The Ethos Anthology of Urban Poetry and Portraits of Places History, Community and Identity in Singapore. Next is Edwin Nadason Thambu. He is a poet and academic who is regarded as one of the pioneers of English literature in Singapore. Thambu's poetry is inspired by myth and history, and he is often dubbed Singapore's unofficial poet laureate because of his poems with nationalistic themes. As a pioneer of local English literature, he compiled and edited some of the first anthologies of English poetry and fiction from Singapore and Malaysia. His own collections of poetry include Rib of Earth, Ulysses by the Merlion, and A Third Map. Thambu has won and received a lot of awards. He won the National Book Development Council of Singapore Book Awards for Poetry 3 times, in 1978, 1980, and 1994. He has also received the inaugural C. Rake Award in 1979 and the first Cultural Medallion for Literature in 1979, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Cultural and Communication Award in 1987, and the Raha Rao Award in 2002. He was conferred a Bintang Bhakti Masrayakat or Public Service Star in 1981 with an additional bar in 1991, and the Pingat Hasa Gamilang Meritorious Service Medal in 2006. He conceived the first National Poetry Festival for Singapore in 2015. Next is Russell Lee. He is a Singaporean author, best known as the creator of True Singapore Ghost Stories, a series of books that has been one of the most popular sources of ghost stories in Singapore, Malaysia, and other parts of Asia ever since the release of Book 1 in 1989. Lee has had a lasting impact on Singapore publishing because his first book was the first of many that were published for the mass market. Before Russell Lee, a book which achieved sales of 3,000 copies was considered a bestseller, but Lee surpassed 30,000 copies in 3 months. Shortly after the success of Lee's first book, readers began to wonder about his identity. Lee has never provided any photograph of himself or revealed anything about his personal life. Whenever he appears in public, he wears a mask and clothes that cover every inch of his body. Some reports say that Russell Lee is white, posing as a local Singaporean. But in the books, Lee swears that he is a Singaporean. Here are the list of his works. Next is Damian Sin. He was a Singaporean author, poet, and musician. He has written several best-selling books published by Angsana Books imprint of publisher Flame of the Forest. Sin started his career as a karaoke jockey before he turned to writing erotic stories while he was in detention for a drug offense. He was a member of Russell Lee's team of ghost writers. Sin also wrote the screenplay of the critically acclaimed film Me Pok Man in 1995, which launched director Eric Khoo's career. Its story was based on Sin's short story One Last Cold Kiss, which appeared in Classic Singapore Horror Stories Book 2 in 1994. Khoo later dedicated his film in The Room 2015 to Sin. Sin, as a solo singer-songwriter, he has performed at the substation in Singapore under the name The Hardcore Troubadour. Sin died at the age of 46 in 2011 due to drug overdose. Next is Bonnie Susan Hicks, born on January 5, 1968. She was a Singapore Eurasian model and a writer. After garnering local fame as a model, she gained recognition for her contributions to Singaporean post-colonial literature and the anthropoid philosophy conveyed in her works. Her first book, Excuse Me, Are You a Model?, is recognized as a significant milestone in the literary and cultural history of Singapore. Hicks later published a second book, Discuss Disgust, and many shorter pieces in press outlets, including a short-lived opinion column in a major Singaporean daily that was pulled due to public dissent from Singaporean traditionalists. Hicks died at the age of 29 on December 19, 1997, aboard Silk Air Flight 185 when it crashed into the Musi River on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, most likely due to an act of suicide and mass murder by the Singaporean pilot, and all 104 passengers aboard the flight died.